Look at part 11, guys. This is the final Dreadnought, the final stage. Well, sort of. We won't be covering the whole thing in this video. At one point, this did used to be one massive stage, but it wound up being a little too big. It just had too much jammed into it, so Stripe decided to split up into 4 smaller stages. And I really like this decision. It's essentially a Wily Castle now, or a Sigma Castle, as it were. And anyway, we'll be covering the first 3 areas in this video, and then the last area and the final boss and the ending in the next video. I really like this first area, the Hangar Bay. In fact, it's probably my favorite out of the whole thing, just because it's partly because of this particular music track. It's just so epic, doesn't even begin to describe it. Like, it's got some tense undertones to it, but there's something joyful about it at the same time. It's a heck yeah, let's do this kind of track. And it's really fitting for this first area to get you hyped up for the rest of it. Oh yeah, we're coming up to one of my favorite moments in the game, one of the biggest highlights of it. Just watch. Out of nowhere, Brevin summons an entire army to take you down. Don't even try fighting all these guys. You can't do it. There's just too many of them. There's too much going on. You just gotta make a break for it. It's crazy. It's like some action scene in a movie. Anyway. By the way, you may have noticed that we're now able to use those teleportation pads we've seen these guys using throughout some of the other stages. Yeah, I really like this. Like, when you see them doing that in the earlier parts of the game, but you can't do it yourself, it's kind of like watching a cutscene. And then, like, when you get to this point in the game and suddenly you're able to use these teleporters to whisk around the ship, it's just, it's crazy, and it just has a whole new layer of depth to at least these stages. So yeah, this is where things get especially crazy. He's trying to suck us out of the ship. Of course, if you let yourself fall all the way down, you will fall out of the ship and die. So, yeah. You kind of have to use Lilac powers to fight against the pull of these things. It is a bit trickier as the other characters. But yeah, you can do it. So anyway, you may have noticed we're doing this on hard mode. These guys are dealing a lot more damage than they usually would. I've been playing up normal mode up until now, but we're up in the ante for these last few stages because there's a couple things I want to show off in particular. You'll see. We're near the end of this stage. There's not really much more to go. But again, I just love how there's just so much going on. Like, this is just the first act of this stage. Look what's happening. It's crazy. And we're still just at the beginning of the final level. There's still so much more to go, as you'll see. So, let's see who the boss of this area is. And it's Syntax, with another crazy battle body to take us down with. This one is it's kind of a jack-of-all-trades thing. It has all these different shapes. It's constantly transforming into new forms. It unlocks like new ones as the fight goes on, as you keep damaging it. It feels like some straight out of Gunstar Heroes. Like, that's kind of a thing with a lot of these bosses. You probably heard a lot of people say that they feel like something out of Gunstar Heroes in general. But this one especially, just because of how it keeps transforming and whatnot. The sprite work is really, really great. We're getting near the end of the boss fight, and I'm not gonna lie. I do find myself dying here quite a bit. I'm surprised that I managed to take this down the first run in this recording. I didn't even really know what I was doing there. That's the first time I've ever taken it down like that, but hey, whatever works. So yeah, pretty cool boss. I think that's the last time we'll ever see Syntax. I think that this time we really did get her. You may have noticed the music changes for the bonus rooms when you enter the last few stages. And I got 2 extra lives. What luck. Alright, this is Area 2. I call these the barracks. It's kind of a residential area where you'll see a lot of the Brevin troopers just hopping around without their suits on. They kind of remind me of the Yokians from Jimmy Neutron. I guess you could say they're the cousins of those creatures. It's just nice that you get kind of a sense of how these guys live, at least for one stage. It just makes this stage really unique. Like, sometimes you'll see these plants growing here and there, probably for, you know, food, and you'll see monitors placed everywhere. These guys are probably constantly checking for things. And you just see them leisurely hopping around like they just never expected you to get this far. We've seen them like that in a few of the early stages, and it was only about halfway through the game that they start wearing those suits and getting tougher. But, it's just interesting to see how these guys live, to see what life on this ship is like. And again, it just makes this area really stand out. I like it a lot. This entire first area, when the game was first released, didn't have any checkpoints. And that was a point of contention for some people, just because it made this part of the stage feel kind of like a death march, just because it is pretty long, it is pretty tough, you're gonna get hit a lot, at least on your first run. And I admit, I found it pretty frustrating my first time through. I died a lot, but that's kind of what the end of a game is supposed to be like. Whatever. Just to show you what kind of a badass I sometimes kind of have the potential to be, I'm going to make it through this entire first area without dying on hard mode. And yeah, this is continuing from the recording that we've been doing so far, like since the beginning of this stage. I played through all of these, save the last area in one run. Yeah, I'll get into that in the next video. So anyway, I really like the music of this stage. There are things I like about the music on all the stages, but this one's really unique to me because it's just filled with so many weird sounds that are just unnerving, and it sounds like something taken out of Metroid Prime. You may not notice it at some parts, but like at the very end of the chorus, you'll hear it. And it's really interesting because there's no other music in the game that sounds like this. It makes this track really stand out. Like, some people may find this track kind of bland, but I love it just because of how atmospheric it is. I admit, you know, it's a bit nostalgic for me just because Metroid Prime is one of my favorite games, and I can't help imagining that when I hear this piece of music. Oh yeah, now we're gonna see the flower shield at work. Just watch. Yeah, I mentioned that it can do this earlier, that it protects you from poison attacks, and I just feel like showing it off there. Oh, here's another one of these guys. Here, I'm not gonna fight him. I'm not gonna bother killing him. I'm just gonna hit and run and go. One of the annoying things about these flower enemies is that once you hit them, well, their stem is still there, and they constantly regenerate. They're always growing back, so, you know, there's no way to permanently kill them. You just gotta take them down and get away before they come back. I must emphasize how tense this was for me when I was recording this. I was trying so hard not to die. I think this is where we find the first checkpoint. I think this is the end of that area that a lot of people get stuck on. I think. Boy, I've already run out of things to say about this stage. Well, yeah, I like the visuals, I like the music as always. Though I like this one just because of how unique it is. And oh boy, by this point I was basically panicking. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, oh, I just gotta get out of here. Oh, look, that enemy disappeared. How nice of him. This next area things just get crazier here, you'll see. There's a lot of switches, a lot of changing the walls and the ceilings and so on, but that's not what makes it tricky, you'll see.
You're forgetting something important about mushrooms. They don't need oxygen.
Brevin just turned off the atmosphere. We can't breathe. It's as if we're trapped underwater now. I just love how every area of the ship has some crazy thing about it that stands out. Like, you know, the first one had the airlocks, and, well, now there's this. It just keeps escalating and getting crazier. It's like, how could they top this? But, yeah. Cutting it pretty close here. Of course, the only way you can hope to survive for long in this area is with a bubble shield. And if you got hit, well, it's not so bad like on normal mode, but in hard mode, because the enemies hit harder, all it takes is one hit to completely destroy your shield. So you have to be especially careful here. Also, sorry if this gets a little choppy now and then. I have Fraps set to split these recordings up by like 4 gigabytes, so each time it reaches the end of one segment and starts another one, it might get a little crazy. It wouldn't do that normally, but for some reason it was doing it that day. Also, yeah, you gotta make it through all these lasers just to get this key card, and now you gotta go all the way back. I'm surprised I managed to make it through that area. Usually I use a combat dash because I just don't have the confidence to try actually making it through there. Oh, no, I gotta get a bubble shield. If you don't manage to finish this area, you can go back up there and get another bubble shield from Mila, but it's like once you get that key card, for some reason, I think she doesn't appear up here anymore. And oh, and there she is right there with another one. Yeah, thankfully she does appear frequently enough that you should be okay. I think this part explains itself. You just gotta keep pushing these switches to make this thing climb up, and of course there are plenty of spike balls to get in your way. And keep in mind, anything that hits you will take this shield down in one hit in this mode. So again, I'm having to be especially careful. Thankfully, there are several chances to pick up health along the way, and I admit I do mess up in this part a bit, just because I was pretty tense. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just trying so hard not to get hit by something, and then, jeez, and there you go. It's important that I saved that one, instead of getting it right away. Again, you just gotta be really careful. Be patient. To try not to get frustrated. I don't know how you're supposed to make it through this bit without getting hit, unless you just have to step off of one of the switches just in time for it to hit one of the balls and then go down a little bit and, oh jeez, I just figured it out. Anyway, look at that, the air is back, and so many extra lives. Well, that was nice of them, though I would much rather have some health, considering we've just made it to a boss. Hold on to your butts, folks. This is what made it considered to be the toughest boss in the game, and, well, I'm inclined to agree. Serpentine in his final form is crazy. He is fast, he is hard, and you're gonna die a lot. Yeah, like, I died a few dozen times on my first run, you know, and I died a few times on in this recording. I'm not afraid to admit that. You know, I'm not gonna cut any of it out. But, yeah, this is why I'm playing through these stages on hard mode. Because this is how fast Serpentine originally was, but a lot of people complained about it, so Strife watered it down and made this fight super duper easy. I mean, seriously, now that I'm able to beat this guy on this mode, it's like I tried on normal mode after the changes were made, and he just seems so slow. Like, I didn't have to make any effort to keep up with his attacks anymore, to anticipate his moves. He had to keep up with me. And it just felt like a more typical video game boss that you would find a AAA game or something. You know, it didn't have that extra oomph that games like this are supposed to have. In my opinion, if you're not dying a gajillion times by the end of a game like this, well, clearly the game is doing something wrong. Yeah, but that's just how I feel. I admit I'm kind of a glutton for punishment. So yeah, this boss, it's just nuts. He hits fast, he hits hard, and he's just relentless. He doesn't even give you a second to breathe, especially when he enters this berserk mode at the end of the boss fight as he starts falling apart. You better have some health saved up by this point, because you're going to get hit. And on hard mode, where he does like twice as much damage as before, it's like, jeez. His attacks are really simple. Like, after a while you can predict what's gonna come next, and you can see it in action, but it's like, while his attacks are really simple, they're just so over the top, and they cover so much space. And honestly, I find this boss really fun. It's just quick and crazy, and just one of the better bosses in my opinion. Just because, you know, it's so simple, but it's so nuts. It's a typical 5-round boss fight. You know, you just hit his face enough times, and by the end of it, he enters his berserk mode, and again, you better have some health saved up by this point. Even if you manage not to get hit by this point, he can drain your health in no time flat. I mean, just look at this. I barely have any time to react to anything. I just gotta keep going. I just gotta play catch up, and I just barely managed to outlast him. Again, this was too much for some people. So Strife, you know, watered it down, and to be honest, that kind of pisses me off. So I wanted to show myself being all badass and taking him down on hard mode. I had to do it. Alright, welcome to Final Dreadnought Round 3. I call this area Central Control. This is where things start to get really crazy. This stage is a pizza with everything on it. It is crazy enemies, crazy gimmicks, a lot of like advanced technology. You really get the sense that we're nearing the end of this. Like, this is just about as crazy as it can possibly get. And yet, it keeps escalating, it keeps going. And I'm just amazed by how Strife manages to continue to outdo himself over and over again, even into like the final areas of the game. It's just nuts. You may recognize this music. It was playing like, well, not this part, but at least the beginning part. We heard it in one of the opening cutscenes where the Magister was talking about the Kingdom Stone and the conflict that was brewing and all that. This is like the full song, and I think it's pretty cool. Oh!
Ship is being infiltrated. Whatever shall I do? How about this?
By this point, Brevon's had enough of our shit, and he's summoning all these turrets to gun us down, and this is where things get especially crazy. I do think these first few rooms are well designed enough that you should be able to dodge these if you're going at a reasonable speed. But dang, don't get hit by these things. They deal a lot of damage, you can easily end up stun locked by them. Thankfully, they do stop every now and then for a few seconds, and you can even get them to gun down each other. I love that sound those things make. So yeah, you can try to take these turrets down if you want, but they're more of an environmental hazard than an enemy, and I would just say it's not worth it. You just gotta keep going, there's very little room for error. Just don't look back. This place, not these things again. I hate these things. Someone called them DNA cannons because their beam looks kind of like a strand of DNA. You know, I can see that, it works for me. Thankfully, you can trick some of these things into taking each other down, but jeez, this is being caught between a rock and a hard place. This entire section here is just one super long corridor filled to the brim with enemies. Don't bother trying to take them all down, just keep going, don't let up for a second, because you're going to be just outgunned and outnumbered, and just keep going. Thankfully, again, you can trick some of them into taking each other down, and there's plenty of pelts to pick up along the way, but just don't screw this up. I have died in this room, like even at the beginning of this room, more than a few times. There's not even much I can say about this area, it's just watch. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the end of the stage now. To get to the next door, this is another place where you need to get a key card. And this is one of the easiest ones to get, you just let these things carry you up. And there it is. Again, I love that you can use those teleportation pads now, it's just another one of those things that just makes this place really, really cool. I do think that, I do admit I screwed up a bit on this part. I just couldn't make myself relax enough to get through here. I was constantly trying not to get hit by this thing. Though at this point I don't know what was going on there. I was just being kind of an idiot. But yeah, I do think that Final Dreadnought is a great final stage. And just looking back on how the game began, I could never have imagined it getting this balls crazy. Like, look at this, it feels like we're in a completely different game by now, and I just really like it. I like it when games do get truly hard. Oh boy. We've made it to the control room. There's the Kingdom Stone.
Remove the device. Throw it to me. I won't ask you again. Just like I said, right in harm's way. I guess she doesn't like you very much now. Go on then. Show your friends just how angry you are.
I didn't know what to make of this boss when I first saw it.
It's gonna be okay. Listen to me.
So from the looks of it, Brevon's knife, that green stuff it's laced with, is some kind of mutagen, and if it doesn't kill you on the spot, you'll end up turning into some freaky thing. He jabbed Mila a little bit, and now look at this. I mean, some people have theorized that this is some strange latent power that Mila has, but considering we saw this happen to Serpentine too, which I think was foreshadowing this, you know, this is just, I can't really explain how this works or how it is Lilac didn't become a mutant too when she was sliced by Brevon's knife in thermal base. Maybe she has some kind of immunity to it because of her dragon blood or something like that. Anyway, this boss, its attacks are very simple, but again, they're just crazy and over the top and cover a huge area. You can see the derivative of Mila's normal attacks, which she just shoots out of her sphincter. And yeah, when you damage it a certain amount, it'll drop a petal and it'll start flying around. And by the time, by the end of the fight, we'll just watch. By this point, when I first fought her, I was starting to freak out. I'm like, ah, I'm sorry, Mila. Just because, look, you can see this thing's brain, its gooey bits. It's like, how is she gonna survive this? Even if we do manage to destroy this form, it's like, oh man. It's a pretty tricky boss. As you can see, I did die a few times. And mainly because it's hard mode and this thing does much more damage. But, yeah, there you go.
Mila? Mila! Ah!
Yeah, we're doing this again. I just want to touch on something that someone brought up in the comments, and this seems like the best time to expand on it. I don't completely agree with them in this case, but I can see where they're coming from because, well, I've seen this sort of thing a lot. The point they brought up is that Mila is kind of a bad character because her sole purpose for existing, her only reason to be in this story, is to be cute. That's her entire identity. The description of her character ends at kawaii. That's all there is to know about her, so it seems. This is what we call a moe blob. It's a really cheap, manipulative plot device, more of a construct than a character, created to garner feelings of sympathy not because they're actually an interesting, compelling character in their own right, but because of how cutesy they are. The player is basically obligated to feel bad for her simply because she's cute, which is fine and all, but still kinda condescending and dumb. It's like we're being browbeaten into feeling bad because we have to. Because look at how kawaii she is! Doesn't she just tug at your heartstrings? Personally, I don't mind Mila much, but that's more because of what I feel could have been done with her character. I think Strife may very well have fleshed her out more if he could, and that's why I left some of Brevon's cut dialogue in there. Just that one line, "Show your friends how angry you really are," adds so much depth to Mila in the story. I like the idea that under that cutesy exterior, she has some serious issues and might really be kind of angry at the world because she hasn't found her parents and all that. It gave her depth, made her feel more real. It cast her in a new light and gave me a new way to think about her. That's why I felt I had to leave that in. That said, while this is a pretty fun, well-designed boss, I think that character-wise, it would be more fitting for Carol to be in Mila's place. In some of the game's other cut dialogue, it seems Carol was going to sacrifice herself at one point. Not necessarily dying, but still. I find this more emotional because, well, these two clearly have a much stronger connection to each other than either does with Mila, and it's not like they couldn't have done this. You can play through this stage and the last stage as Mila. Of course she doesn't fight herself, she just runs across the room and out the door and the level ends. It's kinda hilarious, really. But if they could work around this so easily, then that just makes these characters more interchangeable, and really makes me wonder why Strife felt the need for Mila to be a boss, where, again, it seems the whole point of her is to add fake drama by being as moe as possible. I don't know, it just gets to me. Again, I don't really mind this much, but I can see where others are coming from, and I just felt the need to get it out of the way. Anyway, see you in the finale, guys.
I'll fly real high in the clouds so I can find my mommy and daddy, and we'll all live happily ever after.